Welcome to the Party Starters podcast with me, Kane Towning.
I know you're gonna dig this.
Hello people and welcome to the Party Starters podcast episode 1. We are really doing this. I've bought a flashy new podcast microphone, I've got the headphones, I've got an intro, but still no real clue on how to deliver a podcast. I do, however, have tons and tons of valuable information and advice on how to successfully make it in the nightlife and music industry. I've been inundated with messages from people wanting to get involved with some really good guests coming on. You're going to learn a lot, you're going to laugh a lot. Some of the interviews are very long, like the one you're going to hear now. Some are short and sweet, where people literally just offer their best pieces of advice. Kicking things off is a very good friend of mine. I've been on a eventful journey with him over the years. He's started from literally nothing to at one point becoming the biggest DJ in Yorkshire, one of the biggest DJs in the country. He climbed all the way to the top and then made the decision to completely quit nightlife. No one really knows why he made that decision until now. He tells all. This is the first full in-depth interview he's done where he answers all them unanswered questions. He takes you on a journey from where he first started, all the middle bits, to where he currently is and what the future holds for him. You're going to learn a lot from this guy. He is a very smart businessman. Very interesting, very funny, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the Party Starters podcast, episode 1, my good friend, Danny Bond. Daniel Bond, how are we doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much for doing this.
No worries.
So we'll take it right back to the start. I'm going to take it back to my first experience and my first, how I first heard of your name. And that was when I went down to Leeds Market and bought a Danny Bond CD. The Danny Bond mixes were huge. I used to go down there every single month and be the first to buy them mixes. So was that your first foot in the door of DJing? Did the mixes really create your profile and boost your name?
No, it was quite late on. So the story sort of goes back to the high school days of a friend of mine called Felix. He had like decks in his room, and we went up there and had a play, and then got my mum and dad to get me some for Christmas. And I used to put tapes out around like Garth of Comp, sell tapes, playing a lot of trance, things like that. And just kept doing it. I remember the first time like I did a party, which was like a big mansion in Swillington, and I played Jonestown Sweet Thing there, and then I played it into Mr. Friday Night because I'd heard it on a Casa Loco CD. And pretty much I played that again and again, so we didn't have that many records. Like people said, play that again.
So were Casa Loco your era? Was that in the Lady Lane Casa Loco days?
That was kind of what was big. I remember when I first started DJ, I was 15. So I didn't know what Casa Loco, and I'd heard the tapes and stuff, and the main
from Lady Lane.
Yeah, it was Andy Durant and Paul Ruff. So Andy Durant, the big Galaxy 105 name, then when it was Galaxy 4 Capital. Yeah. And they were doing it, and they were both scratching, and I just remember hearing that mix and thinking, wow. And at that time before, I was playing like, you know, the trance records, like JPS, Found an Angel, Alice DJ, like that's the music that kind of I were brought up on. So when I heard what this sound was, which was going from like organ bassline house into speed garage, into funky house, into retro house, it was just crazy, and it kind of sort of kicked on from there.
So that was your first introduction to the bassline music and the speed garage music.
Yeah, well, tapes were a big thing back then. So for people who remember tapes, if you're old enough to remember it, is tapes got passed around, and like if you was the 12th person to have that tape, the quality of that tape was just so raw. There was just something so raw about a tape sound, and then tapes were gold dust. You had a good tape and it was brilliant.
I remember getting an old Sean Banger Scott niche tape.
Yeah, people used to travel. So there were a guy who lived not too far from me who didn't drink, didn't do anything, and used to used to drive over to Niche just to buy the tapes, just when new tapes had come out, just paying just to go buy the tapes to drive back again. So the access compared to now, where we just go on YouTube, Spotify, and we just press play. Back then, there was a real hunt to get hold of music. It was just something that it were a prized possession. So yeah, that were one of the beauties of that era. And then from there, I was 17, went over to Tenerife, and managed to sort of sweet talk, blag my way in, like most DJs did. Did a summer out there.
What were the clubs over there then?
So I was resident at a place called Clockwork, and I used to live with a guy called Tiny, who Tiny's like crazy. I listened to one of Tiny's podcasts the other day. Sorry, a live stream of a day. I used to live with him. I used to do his editing. So at that point, I was the young DJ there, where I want to know if I look good in headphones and stuff. Whereas he'd been doing it. He'd been doing it 10 years. They were like looking at me. He used to call me the ball bag. That's just what he called me. And I lived with him, and you didn't get paid much, but you just absolutely loved it. But that was 7-hour sets, that playing trance, and you had to play the same set 3-4 times over because new people had come in all the time. So you're just constantly playing. So then I came back home, tried to get some gigs. I remember Glasshouse, Carl from Glasshouse, on his flyers, they were an address, and they were in the same postcode as where Mum and Dad were. So I sent some CDs down there to Glasshouse, just trying to get noticed. And if you're watching, Carl, you just didn't look whatsoever. But, so then, it just so hard to break through. And then I got the call to go back to Tenerife again. I went back there. Went with Paul Cyril. Did one night there. Next day, all my records had gone. So I lost everything. So my records, every record that I must have, the amount of records I took over there, I had a Pioneer mixer that I took over.
What do you mean it had gone?
When we're back into the club, the next day it had been stolen. Still to this day, I don't know what happened, but went back and everything had gone. And I remember absolutely crying my eye. I phoned up Cyril because he'd gone home because he felt something was not right. And I remember phoning him, crying my eyes out, like all the stuff has gone. And you know what it's like from being a record collector.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're collecting gems and you put a lot of money into it. Records were anywhere from £10 to £40 per record. Everything had gone, so I came back, and then at that point I had to flee the island pretty quickly. Because the owners of the nightclub were not happy that I'd sort of thought they were something to do with it. So I had to get on the flight back quickly. And I remember this guy, I had no money at that point. And I went back to the flat where I was, and this guy, and I still to this day can't remember who he was or his name. I met him for an hour, and he just gave me a wad of cash and says, go home, just get yourself home. He also had loads of SIM cards, so I reckon he really dodgy.
He's probably got your record collection.
I think he would, and I remember flying back, and I went to the airport. I got the first. You have what's called standby flights in airports, and I got the first flight back, and I had to go to Blackpool, and I had to get a train back, and I just remember coming home with this massive tail in between my legs. I was either 17 or 18, might have been just about. In fact, no, I'd been turning 18 that January, New Year's Eve. Coming back, massive tail in between my legs, just gutted really. And a little bit Kevin and Perry, where Eyeball Paul takes, they go home crying to the mum. That's what happened to me. So it was literally, I came back home and I started working at Roadrunners taxi rank. I just went back to the bottom, worked in Roadrunners taxi rank, started building up money again, and just kicked on.
So before you went to Tenerife, had you already started DJing in Leeds? Had you got any gigs at that point?
Nothing.
And had you put any of these Danny Bond mixes out? Or were they on the market then?
No. Nothing.
You didn't have any gigs. You went to Tenerife. you lost your full collection, you came back and pretty much started again.
Yeah, full. Just from zero. And it were kind of it was just a lot of determination. I think a love for the music then though, because I was so young into that, the passion that I had for it, and realizing that in a short space I'd come so far. You just think, right, just you go again. I didn't really have anything else that sort of fulfilled me. I wasn't no good at football or anything like that. I would just so I couldn't fill that on the weekends. Music was, that was me.
And how were you at school? Because you are a very smart man. You're a good businessman. So did you do well at school?
So at school, I was just like I am now. So everyone knows me. I am the wind-up merchant. I am the prat. I'm the idiot. I like just tomfoolery. That's what I like. So I was always that report of could do so much better, but just wants to basically wants to stick around. So
Not much change there.
no. So I went to. I ended up moving school, trying to just, my mum and dad just wanted a fresh start for me. And I went to business because she didn't do business studies at the first stage of high school. We came on in the second, and I got into business studies. And I was top of the class. And the guy had said to me, the teacher, you're on for an A star here. Every other, I was good at English, but every other else, I wasn't that bothered for. But I love the business. I loved how you got this for this, and then you did this, and you made this, and it just fascinated me how it all worked. And so we're on for an A star at business studies, and the day of the exam, I'd forgot what day it was, and I missed my I missed my first business studies exam. So 1 out of 2, missed it, and ended up getting a D. Because I'd done that well on my second one, I still managed to creep into that sort of D. Yeah. Not to like I did it with 50% of what I could do. So that's just me in a heartbeat. So I was there, and then I just my mum. I remember my mum thinking, "How the hell have you missed that?" But yeah, business studies always fascinated me.
So you never fancied going to college or going to uni?
We did. I went to sixth form for a week. Myself, Paul Cyril, one of my friends, Paul Nolan. We all went to the same class, and yeah, just one. It just one for me. Just one that back then. I just wanted to do. I just wanted to do music. That's just what I wanted to do. So kind of. It's a long time ago now. I'm 35, so it's we're going back 19 years. But I still remember that I wanted to, at that point, I mentioned there Paul Nolan, one of my old friends. He had decks. Cyril had decks.
Did Nolan have decks?
Yep, Nolan had decks. Jimmy Turner, obviously one of my best mates, had decks. There were Felix. So we all were this little clang of people who had decks. And then we just, you phone each other up and play records. Have you heard this? Have you heard this? God, Steve Luigi ripped me off for £40 for this one. Have you heard that? And it was just that it was that there were a culture in the world of records that were just huge, and it stems back to when I first started collecting speed garage records, bassline records, whatever you might call it. There was forums, so there was a bass cuts forum where the kind of the sort of hard banter that went in on there. Like I wasn't getting gigs then, but I was still that wind-up merch. And I remember, me, Jamie Duggan, Sean Scott, we didn't like each other. The reality is I was this gobby lad who'd not done anything, not achieved anything. And I was gobby. So I remember me and Sean had big fallouts, and then he started making these little jingles, and it makes out of banter, but it were hard banter. Then me and Jamie...
is that where that came from?
It did, yeah. I've made a rod for my own back.
Yeah, but I thought them jingles and stuff come from obviously at a point where you were a name. You were a.
It got there, but before it all stemmed. This forum bass cuts. There was another one called Mo's Music Machine, which was just a message board, and it's where people connected and swapped records and things like that. And it were very clicky. And at that time, Sean was the messiah.
Yeah,
It was the
I
man.
remember going on.
It was
I was too young then. I didn't even dare comment because it would just,
that's what.
you had like Banger and Shorties and stuff who were like the voices of it. And
Yeah,
I just sit
Tom
and
were a young
spectate.
guy, short as then. It were only a young. I've talked to him all the time, and it was such an era. It was such a. But like what you've just said there, you were afraid to comment, but I was that lad who just didn't bite my tongue. So I was happy to say that a remix that Naughty Nick had put out to me sounded out of key, and then Sean made this massive moment of it, and obviously they're like, "Who's he? Who's this lad?" Like giving a bit of bad criticism to a guy who's a niche legend like Naughty Nick was originator. And then Jamie starts stepping in. It all just kind of like all just went a bit daft. But we're all good friends now. But that were the early internet days. That were the MSN Messenger kind of AOL type days of the internet, and forums were where you connected. And it was so cliquey. But looking back, I would love to be able to read the archives of these forums now to read some of the stuff that were put, because I'd cringe.
Yeah.
But it was great. It were a culture that it was a culture of the record collectors, the modern day comic book guys, comic book collectors. I've just started buying records again. And I was talking to Jamie last week, and Jamie still is the collector, and he showed me a website where I could go buy everything again, and he used to get hooked back in again, and I'm thinking, God, taking me back to my youth. So anyway, yeah, we digress, but good. Them times were great times, but they were before I got a run out, and where I got a run out was I used my business studies side. And well, half of it, and I decided that no one going to book me, so I'll just put my own parties on.
Oh, so that was, because I was going to come on to how did you get into events. I always thought you'd made them mixes, you'd created a name, and then you got booked for events.
No, so I remember it quite clearly. I met up with Mark Howarth. Mark Howarth at that point did a venue called Barmed.
Yeah.
I met up with Mark, and we were talking about stuff, and nothing ever really came of it at that point. So I went off and I did Evolution, was my first ever night called Ignition. And I remember it. I remember the flyer was a check, and it said Royal Bank of Bass, and it looked like it in the same size as a check. And then at the other side, it said what it was, and me, Mark Howarth, I think Fudd from Castle Loco.
How did you and Mark meet? How did that relationship start?
I wanted to go to Barmed, and I just started connecting. We met up, and we've been really good friends.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you were related.
Yeah, we were close. The thing with us two was we played back to back together for probably 10 years in most sets. But we were just exactly the same. We had very dark sense of humor, and we're just this kind of clique of. He sort of took me under his wing a little bit. At that point, when I first met him, I was partying hard, like really hard, and he sort of tried to sort of level us out a bit. And we kind of just, we stayed friends. We're still friends now, but I learned a lot how at that point, Mark was doing, before he was doing a place called Fluid, which ended up being Twilight. And that when I walked in there and I heard DJ Antoine Visit Me playing, which is now probably my flagship record, what I play in all my sets, I just remember thinking, wow, this is... And when you walk to a nightclub at that point, the feelings of, will I get in or one? So I didn't know enough there to get on the guest list. Or will I get in? Will someone chin me? Will someone mug me? You had all these thoughts, and you queued up outside, and then when they were like, right, on your way, and you go, and then you walk down those. I always remember walking down the steps, and you're like, what is this? This is amazing, and that's where I saw Mark play. And that's when I thought, I know, like, I'd love to, this is what I'd love to do. So I ended up doing Evolution on my own. And I remember I got 5,000 flyers printed and it cost me about £150. And I remember at that point driving to every single takeaway in Leeds. And when I say every takeaway, I mean every takeaway. Every chippy takeaway, like sort of estate pub, you know, like deep in Belial and places like that. And went along, you know, you go into, you pay 30 pence to put it in a corner shop window. And I just, old school. I didn't know social media back then. There were no MySpace, no Facebook, no Twitter. I didn't really know that many people. I had my friends, you know, I didn't know that many people, and managed to get 400 people on Friday night in the dome side of Evolution. Wow. And I remember that was the first time that I sort of tasted money and thinking, wow, this is good. And then it just kind of kicked on. It kicked on from there. And then what you did is you did memberships back then. So when you used to go to nightclubs, your key person of your staff, you did memberships, and the memberships didn't mean anything. Like, I don't know what they meant. you got the names and addresses of the people, and I still worked at I working then at a call center, like a call center, and they had they were in like a Regis building where you just take the post down, and if you're watching this in the area, sorry. I'd get the flyers and add all the addresses, and I'd have the other apprentice there. We're writing them out, and we'd just post all the flyers down to people's houses, and my work would pay for it. And it just kind of just kicked on. And then I went to Barmed and did the night called Ignition, which is the Ignition there, and we just that's where it elevated.
Yeah, I remember hearing about like the monthly Barmed. It were hot topic. But just going back to, so you literally just used to go watch Mark play and just kind of got yourself known.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was never a DJ box kind of.
No, but you went down to the nights, because I think it's something that people miss these days, especially because of social media. They don't physically go down to nights. The amount of people that I'm sure ask you as well for sets, and you don't know this person from Adam, and you say, like, you know, have you been down to one of the events? And they're like, no, never been.
Yeah. Great.
So I think, you know, as a first foot in the door for people wanting to get them DJ sets, just go down to the events, get yourself known.
You don't have to go. You don't necessarily have to go down to the events to, I won't say it, kiss bum.
No,
you
not
just
at
need
all.
to actually to understand it. So there's a DJ. So we both know there's a DJ called Titch, who, you know, doesn't get on enough at some of the events, but whenever he plays, he's consistent because he knows he is the partier in the places.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get DJs like what you say, who get in touch, who don't know anything about what big tunes are down there, and they've got their idea, and then and then when it works, and then it doesn't work. When I would go into nightclubs like you know, Twilight, places like that, I was going there as a DJ who wanted to listen to music and be like, wow, what is that track? Don't get me wrong, I haven't got it with me, and we'll show this after, but like the amount of records that I've got that I bought off Mark, which have like stickers on them over the label that say, what are you looking at? And things like that, because that's what DJs did, is they'd have a little look over. Because the thing about being a DJ back then was the only way you'd get noticed was by having records that were a little bit different to everyone else. So I was a music enthusiast at heart, and going to those nightclubs fueled that passion, because I'd go away thinking of a tune, and then I go buy that record, and then it kicked on. It kicked on from there. In terms of excuse me, my CDs, I believe that the reason why my CDs were successful was because I was on the forums, your Bass Cuts, your Mo's Music, and I actually went to the studio and produced a track. I then, because I did that track in Birmingham, I then become friends with the Birmingham scene. So Joe Hunt, Steve Savage, Tom Shorters, Nicky G, Davey Boy, they were all in the studio week in, week out. And because we were all making music, we were all sharing music with each other. So I was bringing these fresh tracks up to Leeds that no one had them, and then playing them in the clubs and then putting them on the CDs. And that's how I managed to kind of differentiate myself from everyone else, because I'd have a tune that no one would have it. Literally straight off the press. And that's why the term was Sean Scott, the banger exclusive and stuff. That's what it was all about. So when that, when you walked in and he dropped that tune and you didn't know what the name it was, but you could see the reaction, that were like, right, the man's arrived. And that's the difference between DJing back then to what DJing is now. It's all about that track that no one had, and it was just such a whether that was followed in other scenes, whether it was the garage scene like that, was the hardcore scene like that, were they protective over records and things? I don't know, but I've seen DJs nearly have full-on fistfights over records before. I've seen it with my own eyes outside Steve Luigi's, two guys nearly ready to go at it over a record. So the passion was, it was huge.
Yeah, it's definitely, that culture's definitely changed now with, you can pretty much build a collection overnight just online.
Yeah, a Spotify playlist you could go through 3-4 Spotify playlists and you could go and play a good bar in Ibiza, no problems whatsoever, because the Spotify playlists are what now fuel what people listen to, because it's the platform that they're all going on to.
So we've arrived at the Bar Med days. Did that really propel you? Because as I said, they were huge. They were talked about in Leeds, them monthly Bar Meds. I wasn't old enough to go out then. I don't think I ever went to one. But I remember just everyone talking about them. So
the monthly Bar Meds, just to kind of make a point, Mark's Luscious Events at Bar Med was the one that they were talking about. Like, I came in late to that party. So I went to Bar Med and I probably only did maybe 4 or 5 months there. And Mark had been there for a good year. Mark's events, you couldn't get in. They were just full capacity most. They were queue all the way around the square.
And how many people are we talking about?
Well, obviously, I can't say for legal reasons of capacity. But
but are we talking 400, 500, 1,000, 3,000?
No, I think you're in the 5s to the 1,000 region. It was the health and safety officer at that point probably.
You've been really cagey about that one, aren't you?
Yeah.
What is Bar Med now?
Bar Med now is just offices. They were a great venue, Bar Med, and it's something. I was on a long call with Tom Shorters this morning. We're just chatting about clubs and stuff, and that kind of 300 to 400 capacity, like, kind of bar strat club. There isn't that many of them around anymore, and it's a shame, because there was loads of them in Leeds at that point. You had Oslo, you had Courthouse, you had loads of these places that was, even your Twilights.
Yeah, Twilight were a perfect capacity.
Yeah, but they're just not there anymore, and it's sad really that we don't have that anymore. That kind of club that you went to.
Yeah, you very much got either your huge clubs or too much of a bar that it's not really right for a DJ-led event.
Yeah, well, you know it yourself for land. It's the shift now. It's massive, but I were honoured to be a part of that era back then, because that era back then was just like the latter years of what I find as brilliant clubbing days.
And what was the trouble like back then? Because obviously, probably after that is when your bassline scene really kicked off, which brought a lot of trouble with it. Was that evident back in the Bar Med days, or were it more like your funky crowd, your funky house crowd?
No, Mark's event had no trouble.
So you started it all.
Yeah, Mark's the trouble. The trouble came from, he just
Were the change in music?
I don't know.
Because if you look at Casa Loca, it started a lot more funky, didn't it? And then it went to your more speed garage, and then eventually into your bassline stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It it was never like for what happened for the kind of music that I played. It was never, your knife and gun problems like was talked about in the media and other places. It was just your Gary from the estate who'd had too many, who then bumps into Bobby, and then that's it. It goes, but then because the clubs were so busy, as soon as that bit of commotion happened, then they knocked into them, they knocked into them, they knocked into them, and then it just erupted. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
literally, the times you have to turn lights on and you're like I'd go in some nightclubs and they had special lights next to the mixer was like the kickoff light, and you press the kickoff light and it just what it
Yeah.
was like. It would just,
We,
but
we
that
had we had them in Twilight.
we did. Yeah, we did.
Pressed the button and light started flashing. But you're right, it were more, it were more obviously fist fights. It were never like serious gun crime or knives
No, we're
that I
nothing.
recall anyway.
No, it wasn't. Not being wrong, it got tasty, and you felt quite safe in the DJ box. A lot in some events. There's loads of events I could talk about, but it was. But the thing about that is that's what attracted people. So the thing with bassline is it's kind of it's that sort of music that people love and they don't like to admit that they love. Or what they do is, I notice it now on my stuff, is people will say, are we going to go, they want to go watch me, are we going to go chav it out and all this? And what they have to do is have to use those words to try and justify like listening. So it's a bit taboo. Was listening our music was just a bit taboo, where it shouldn't be like that. It's not, but that's just how it were. And I think because those nights were a bit edgy, people did like it. It was just how it were. It would because it were a little bit scary, a little bit underground. And I remember it from being a clubber and queuing up outside Fluid and not knowing, could I get robbed? Could this happen?
Yeah.
But it were exciting at the same time. It were a bit like going to an away match. Like football, you were there. You knew it might be a bit dodgy, but you loved it. It was that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
I think that probably transpired onto the dance floor as well, because you didn't have to watch how you looked. It wasn't about that. It was just about having a good time. And there's no more up for it crowd than a bassline crowd still to this day. Them tunes that you play.
Oh, they go crazy. And what you have to remember, back then, there was no social media, so people went out and they were that into what they were doing, connected, and they weren't distracted. They weren't, like, I do love the social media. I like people filming a drop and everything like that. But back then, it didn't work like that. So you were there. You could, and the thing as well is you could play a track for 6-7 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and they were entertained. I did a 4. We'll go to that later, but a 4-hour vinyl set on Saturday, and I played every track end to end to end to end like I used to do. And I haven't been able to do that for probably 10 years because you can't. It's like if they're not entertained after a minute, they go. Whereas back then, they were there for that. Like some of the tracks, like DPD, Sign Your Name, Deborah Cox, Nobody's Supposed to Be Here. Them tracks took forever to kick in, but people loved them because they were just there for music and to dance. That were it. They weren't there to worry about, will they be on Snapchat tomorrow and things like that. Oh God, no, I don't want to look like that. Oh God, I don't want my lip going like that. They're just there to enjoy themselves. So that looked different.
So moving on from the Bar Med days, where did you go next, and how did you go even bigger?
So the CDs, I remember, and Gilly will be watching this now, that I said to Gilly, can I sell my CDs in your shop? And,
Gilly Disc in Bradford.
Yeah, and Sasha. None of you are going to get away with this. And they said, yeah, we'll give them a go. So I didn't get nothing for the first few. And then I remember someone telling me that were like second biggest seller in the shop. like pretty quickly behind Fat Fingers. And I asked, says, I need some money, and I think they give me £100. And I found out they were selling 500 or 600 a month at a tenner a pop. They were a tenner per single CD, or £10. So I had to negotiate my way up to a little bit more money, and then I started realizing that all these market traders were making. Yeah, so you used to have to drive around to all of them, and get money off of them. Because I had to just say, you're taking away from the thing. But then, but that's when I had my moment of thinking, right, it's working this, because if people are buying them, there's a demand there. But back then, what was different is the era we're in now of the DJs. You only have to have a tune on a Spotify playlist and you're a big money DJ. It wasn't like that back then. You were still a regular money DJ, but you just got loads of work. So you just, you'd hop from city to city to city. And it kind of just kicked on. And then where it really went big was when Precious came around, and the concept of, so I'd never met Alex, and we met up in a McDonald's, and he was saying, right, I do Atrium, I do this. If you do Heaven, if you come do Heaven and Hell with me, I think we can make it work. So I said, right, how's Heaven and Hell work then? Well, it's £10 in all you can drink. I said, well, how does that work? I said, they've already got 2 floors full. This ain't going to work. And he says, no, I've negotiated this deal, and we'll do it. So we did what we always did promotion-wise, that this was the first time I properly teamed up with someone. And we went flyering all over, like proper graft, like real graft. And the first night, they were getting normally 300 on a Friday. The first night, we had to close the doors at over 1,000 people. It was just absolute chaos. And that kicked on for a long time. I think it kicked on for a good 1.5 to 2 years. And the most crazy memory of Heaven and Hell was, the thing about Heaven and Hell was, you had in Hell, so the irony in Hell, you had, like it were raw down there. It was sweaty, it were packed, and then the middle floor was R&B. So you guys with the brandy, all like looking for the girls, and upstairs you had your geeky lads, you're just nice kids that had all big spiky hair. They were listening to Busted up there and stuff. And you could see that they were wanting to be nowhere near the guys in Hell. So anyway, one night, I'm DJing, and I remember all of a sudden this massive noise, and I looked round me, and the ceiling had collapsed in the middle floor. The ceiling had totally collapsed in Purgatory, the middle floor. So no one died. And started coming down, and we're like, Jesus, what are we going to do here? And we literally, this were all turntables back then. We said, right, so manager, what we're going to do? They were downstairs were full. You couldn't move down there. I said, what we're going to do? So I said, we'll have to go to Purgatory. So I just remember I was running upstairs with these decks, and we had these decks, and like you could see the posh kids in Purgatory thinking, what's going on here? And all these like bassline people from down there were storming in with plugged decks in and went boom, and then started party again. And it was just, it was absolutely crazy times. But again, after so long, trouble hindered that place. And we were promoting binge. At that time, Heaven and Hell were promoting binge drinking. £10 all you could drink, plus bassline. It wasn't.
That's not a good concoction, is it?
It just wasn't the combo. So we had to go there to Fruit Cupboard, which was Fruit Cupboard there, and we kind of had years of hopping around, of just venue hopping, and then we met, and then the movement story happened.
So I think it's fair to say that when you did the Heaven, obviously you'd been doing events before that, but from the Heaven and Hell era, that's where you really seen it as a business, and you turned it into a business.
It was, yeah. We could see the potential of them. How much a strong business that we had, and it was just getting to the point where venues weren't big enough for us. The demand for this sort of, I don't know what were different, because Casa Locos was still open back then. I don't know. Do you know what? I think I do. I think when I worked with Simo was the first guy to put a microphone over bassline without being an MC. Was the first guy to get on a microphone and get a crowd going. And what was such an underground scene at Casa Locos, there was no one ever on a microphone back then. Alex kind of got the crossover of commercial plus bassline, and that's what made it accessible.
Yeah, it kind of took the moody edge off that the music was going to. Another key thing that I remember from the Heaven and Hell days, and especially when you linked up with Simo, was the promo CDs.
Yeah, and he was talking at the start.
You'd never seen that. You'd never heard someone speak on a microphone at the start of a CD, and you'd never seen CDs. It was commercial promoting back then, that your underground clubs like Casa Loco just, you'd never even think of doing it.
No, that was the first. I think we were one of the first people to actually do CDs, not to sell, but to give away. At that point, I was making money from CDs, but we then started just duplicating CDs, and the advert of track one, so you couldn't get past it, was Alex talking. And he was introducing the nights what were, what were going to be happening. And as soon as you put that in your car, and everyone wanted that CD, then it just spread like wildfire. And then when the market started copying those CDs, they were doing our job for us. They were promoting it for us. So they just, and it's crazy that I've not even thought about this, how that was probably what elevated. He's gonna have such a big head in Alex for that now, but that is what elevated that he stuck a microphone to it and crossed over. But the music changed. The music I was playing back then, this was when new Bassline House was out. We'd gone past what you got to remember with Casa Locos is Casa Locos was still playing the same music from 98, 99. There wasn't that many new tunes coming through. And then when I started to come to Heaven and Hell, and I moved away from vinyl and I started playing fresh CDs, which was, tracks from Birmingham of big vocals, big girly anthems.
And is that when your live PAs started being introduced as well?
Yeah, it was.
Your Kimberly Miles.
Yeah, Katie was a bit further on. So was Kim, but the God, I can't remember the first. I remember the first PA that we had.
But again, you'd never seen a live PA.
No, not at all. It weren't like that. It was very underground, so it wasn't. It was probably frowned upon to have a live PA.
Yeah.
And probably the clubs weren't set out to do it as well. It'd have been, it wouldn't have been the right. A lot of the venues weren't set out, but Heaven and Hell kind of give us that platform to do it. In fact, I think Kimberly Miles was one of the first. Yeah, I think Kimberly Miles was the first PAs that we had. She did a track called "Give It to Me," and back then, that's like I say, that Birmingham organy piano sound was the sound that wasn't really doing much at the Casa Locos back then, because it was being mixed with speed garage and stuff. We didn't really play any of that warping type speed garage, and we didn't really play that in Leeds. I didn't anyway. I was always just very sort of commercial led. Where you talk about two people now, maybe myself and Jamie, we've both done well, but we couldn't be any different. We're so different in what we do. It was just, you call it bassline, but his bassline to my bassline were two totally different things.
Yeah, and you can have two completely different markets. I'm sure there's loads of people who just wouldn't listen to your kind of sound, and vice versa.
Yeah, that were it. Totally different.
So you've done Heaven and Hell. then you moved Precious to Fruit Cupboard, and you had some stints at Rehab.
Yeah, we did
And then
Rehab, Puro.
Puro, yeah.
That's when I met Tom. I was at Rehab, and there were this right annoying 16, 17-year-old kid, and they were just, get it, let me out, Mike, let me out, Mike, let me out, Mike. And I remember just thinking, bloody hell, man, he was just really intense. And then we ended up, I didn't know him then, and then you start to get talking. And then because when you meet someone in a nightclub, I know what I will like. When the DJ is DJing and you're at the DJ, you could be the best person, you could be a great person, but the DJ is DJing and he just wants to DJ, he just wants to get on with his thing. And I met Tom, and then that's about that time was when he did the Imagine track, and that was based around that. We did Puro on a Friday and Rehab on a Saturday. Yes, I think it was.
It's Saturday night in the Twilight, wasn't it?
Oh, the Twilight! Wow, yeah,
Friday
the Twilight
night in the Rehab.
yeah. The Twilight. Sorry, yeah. They did another one about Puro. So anyway, back then was when Tom started. When Tom came around, he was just a young guy then. And Kimberly Miles. That's when the performances started that they were starting to become clear. And it were around that era. I remember Tom linked up with Tom Ferguson and they did the I Swear track, and like that tune was just like a big lead sort of, like it was so cheesy, but it was a huge lead anthem. And then obviously, that with Tom, the rest is history. But any commissions, Tom, we'll talk about.
I guess that is really where it started turning from an underground club night into becoming a show. And from that, you could obviously see the potential for this on a big stage. And that led into movement.
It did. And I remember the movement chat really, really well. And I remember that there was one person who put his hand up and says he didn't think it'd work. He didn't think, and that was me.
Who was that, Dan?
That was me. And at that point, my business head I was thinking, right, well, I was doing Habit back then on a Thursday. I was doing, that was busy. I was doing Friday night back then at Puro. We was doing, and then I was doing loads of DJing, and I kind of didn't need to take risks. And then all of a sudden, there was this chat about, right, are we going to go big? And I think like all businesses, like no matter what business you're in, the thought of scaling up when you're in a comfortable position scares you. And I got it very, very wrong. And I remember that.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, I got it extremely wrong. And I remember the first night. The reason I remember the first Victoria worked so well is about 4 hours before I was due to go, Michelle told me she was pregnant with Harry. So on that very day, I found out that Michelle was pregnant. And I'm thinking, wow, first child, what is going like? I've got this big event going on. I've got this going on. And I remember like ringing Alex. Oh, God, this is what's happened. And Alex being out, oh, right, yeah, fine, don't worry. Don't. And then telling someone, telling your friends and stuff, your wife's pregnant and stuff, and it was all supposed to be kept under wraps. You keep it under wraps until the 12 weeks. And I just remember all of a sudden, congratulations to Danny on this microphone at Victoria Works in front of everyone. I'm thinking, no, what are you doing? You can't tell people. And then what I say, but what I do remember, that night was the warm-up night for what was the biggest movement of all, which was the next one, where I remember that morning, Michelle was quite heavily pregnant then, and then there was there was kidnap threats. There was all sorts that went on that day, and it was a day of learning someone wants to kidnap you. Rumors going around because the reason being is, as you know, it was cash. So back then, people bought tickets with cash. So us as promoters, we were the equivalent of like people who had, we won't name professions, but professions that have money under mattresses. We were those people because we're in this cash and we were brought into there. And I remember at that point when all that happened, thinking, has this got too big? Like, and I didn't like the idea of people knowing how well people turn into mathematicians and start saying, well, you've got this venue, you're selling tickets at this, you've got this big. You make they only look at turnover. They never look at your costs. They just look at your turnover.
I think what we need to explain to people is, for those that don't know, Movement was at the time the biggest bassline event ever. No one had ever done anything on that kind of scale.
No.
It was at Victoria Warehouse, which was a 3,000 capacity warehouse in Leeds. I know there's much bigger venues now, but back then that was huge. That was like an event space. And we did Movement, which was the first, as I say, the first bassline event of that size. I was just a kid, so everything you was worried about with the size of it and stuff, I was just excited. I was a kid. I didn't have that kind of business head on then. Obviously, you was a bit further on and could see them problems.
Yeah,
and obviously with bassline being a bit of a dodgy scene, it was like you say, with the cash and stuff, you was exposed.
Yeah, you was. Beverly Bell, like my sister. Like the amount of times Joe Bailey, there's also like that, and Joe used to like get scared driving home and like thinking about getting followed because they knew he had the cash, and it was scary. And I think at that point, because I was about to become a dad, my whole outlook on the world totally changed. And I remember from the early days of having, cash stashed in a Paul and Shark jumper tin and just like enjoying it, to then all of a sudden I'm going to be a dad. I've got responsibilities, and I'm coming into this world of where people want to kind of tax you and things like that. It kind of just it just changed things. Whereas I was just enjoying just doing the clubs and sort of being a bit sort of under it. But that night, I always remember some of the performances. I remember Tom did a very, very good performance. I've still got on YouTube now. Really good performance. I remember the Robin S performance. And I think that for me personally, my sort of where I went off even further from Movement in terms of my profile was when I did that intro. Was when like I looked and no one had ever done like, and I can't think where I got inspired. I think it was a DJ at Garland's had done something where he'd done some samples. So I started thinking, right, well, I'll get 4 bars of this, 4 bars of this, 4 bars of this. And if I could play the original track, it's awful. Like the production, the levels are all over, but no one knew in a club. But that was kind of the intro of sort of, I'm here. Like, this is it. This is my set. And because it were a big stage movement, that was like the first days of people doing YouTube videos. And they're still on there to this day. Like the sound quality on them, oh my God, the sound quality is awful. But there were they were the first type of camera phone of where someone were like, right. And it was all about making a show. And that's what I've done forever since, is always tried to do intros. And it was Movement. I'm grateful for being involved in it, because that gave that me personally just an even bigger sort of stage to even to do my thing on. So yeah, Movement were a great day, but the lows of that in a business sense, and we were both there together, we'll remember this day, was when we was just about to kicking on with an event, starting to sell well. It was, and then all of a sudden it was taken away from us.
Yeah, that was devastating. I remember on the week leading up to Movement events, them weeks we didn't put petrol in his cars. We was like living on the breadline. It was, it was scary times. And then I think it was the November one. We'd sold quite a few tickets at that point, and it was set to be the biggest event any of us had ever done. And they lost the license a week before, I think it was.
Yeah, it was around that. We wasn't from thinking the numbers we got. I think was we want at that point of momentum where we'd sold loads and we had sold enough tickets. We're on course. But if you remember back then, now we can log into a Skiddle account at any time and we can see how many tickets we sold for an event. Back then, we'd do that, and you remember it, and we'd dared ring Crash Records because we'd have that feeling in his stomach of if you phone Crash Records up 2 weeks before, and you say to Ian, and I still see Ian, I see him at football all the time. How have we done? And he'll say, "You've sold 42 tickets, Daniel." And you're like, right, okay, well, I need to sell about 1,500 more, and it'd just be, and because everybody would just go, boom, last day and buy these tickets in cash and stuff. And so then as a businessman, the how scary that was, because you was relying on, at that point, the cost to put those events on compared to what it was for me to go and open Puro. Like, this was big scale stuff. So when we got into that big league stuff, and we started to, you could see where you could make serious money, but when you can make serious money, you can lose serious money at the same time. And when that was taken, when we had Victoria Works taken away from us and we had to move to Evolution, I just remember that it was a time where, I fell out with I remembered, I've got no shame in saying it, but the guy who owned the club back then, this is my opinion, it's nothing to do with the UK, but the guy then...
At Evolution.
Yeah, at Evolution, he took the mickey out of the public, and he inflated his drinks prices by nearly double of what they'd have paid at other venues at Victoria Works, just to kind of line it. And I remember leaving there just with a thing of thinking, well, I've brought you this ready-made crowd that spend good money anyway, and then you ripped them off. And I remember at quite a low point of we'd gone from doing a massive venue, what people were so looking forward to. So then we took them to a club, and then the club we took them to, which was nothing like the venue they could have gone to, then ripped them off when they got inside. So just them moments of when you go into that big business world, or you scale up, where sometimes it's not as it's not as unfun, and we've all not as fun. Sorry, when you see that in his normal lives, with any sort of business, is sometimes that where you are was never so bad. Yeah. It's sometimes the scale up can you don't need to do it.
Yeah. A fond memory I have of movement is when we booked Robin S. It was the first time we'd ever booked an artist, and had to sort flights and fly someone over from America. It was just scary as fuck. And we did it. And I remember us joking all week about what we're going to do if she don't turn up. What will we do? And I think you'd bought a new car and everything to go pick her up from airport. And me and you went over and I'd all car clean everything, went to airport like an hour before, stood there waiting. And nothing. No, she did not come out. And then the flight had come. We went to speak to someone. We were like, has everyone come off that flight? Yeah, everyone's off. And then it were an hour waited. You were on phone to, I think, Platinum, trying to get a second booking. And you were practicing your speech, what you were going to do on stage, and just said, she hadn't turned up, I can do. And then we were about to turn around and go, and she just appeared. And I just remember the joy and the relief of seeing her. Yeah. And Customs had stopped her and done whatever. And she was a bit moody. It wasn't the most pleasant of drives.
No, she was the first time I'd met Adi. It was first moment, the thing is, you had this stereotype of meeting someone who could potentially be a diva, and Robin was a diva. So straight away, and I remember taking her to, a hotel. I think which one, it might have been Park Plaza or somewhere like that. It was somewhere around that vicinity, and saying, "Is there anything I can do for you?" and all this, and I would just, like, I don't know, a bit starstruck. And she was like, "Yeah, you need to pay my Wi-Fi now. You need to do this. You need to do that." And you're like, she just wasn't happy. But then we had her on, and she did a performance, and she was brilliant. Apart from, I don't know if it was the first time I had her or the second, but she did Show Me Love. Oh no, she did Love for Love, and then she did Back It Up, and then in the middle she did some random R&B tune she done with her son or something.
She
like
brought
that.
her son on stage and started doing this. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah,
The
like a
weirdest
hip hop thing. And I just remember thinking, what's she doing? And then she finished with Show Me Love, and then I remember Sasha. One of Robin's demands was she's an average church. She's a churchgoer, and she goes to I don't know what the terminology is. The Holy Church, the very vocal type, gospel choir type churches. They have them not far from Chapeltown, and you had to take her there. And Sasha was a bit worse for wear, and he had to take her there the next day. And I just remember him he'd been sweating, and he'd been in his church, and then he had to get her back to airport. But there were fond memories, and just that was our first taste of a diva. But it were, when we had her, that was a big moment, because we'd never spent that much money on booking an artist. And what really shocked us, which for any new promoters out there now, or any promoters been in it a few years, is what you realise is the fee they tell you what an artist is. It's the pluses. So you have to pay this, you have to pay flight share, you have to pay this, you have to pay some meal buyout. So she doesn't come. She wants to go get a sandwich. You've got to pay £40, and there were just all these things. What agents made it. It was the first taste of working with agents, which I commend all yourself, Jamie, Tom Shorters, who work with agents week in, week out, because it's hard. It's very, 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 very hard. And it was our first taste, and I think I was always I never mince my words, sorry, and I didn't like it. I didn't like that part of movement of dealing with agents on things. I didn't like the fact that someone, had to be treated like absolute royalty. We had it in the Habit days. Some really good acts, but then you had some acts who, I think a lot of music artists, they might be introverts who were made music in the bedroom, and then they were shot out onto the stage, and then they didn't know how to handle it. So it was hard for them to characters. So, but that's another story. But you could,
Yeah, no, I think you've been very, very vocal over the years, and you've never been right fond of doing them big bookings. Maybe that's because of how much you personally bring to the table with your name, and you've never had to do that. You've been able to sell events out on your name.
Yeah,
so
I'm lucky.
When I'm trying to put a $3,000 to $5,000 artist here, you're just like, no.
Yeah. Well, that's how that's how it were. Maybe that's because I've done it by myself. But don't get me wrong, but I get things wrong. I got the Victoria Works things wrong. There's loads of things that I get wrong. And I think because I've been in that position where I can just do my own thing, and I've always been able to, and I've been able to do that since 2003. I could just do something myself, so it was a hard thing to adjust. And I remember, the debates where we'd sit there and we'd say we should put this person, that person. And I just didn't want to do it, and it wasn't that I was being tight. I just didn't see. I'd do the maths, and I'd look and I'd think, if DJ X is going to cost me X, is he going to sell me X amount of tickets? And if I wasn't 1,000% sure, and I wouldn't do it. And this is where the modern day festival era is, it's starting to go wrong because the agents are hiking up the prices, and they're making it so hard for your clubs to book these artists because they're getting these huge festival fees when a lot of them, I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but they don't justify it is the answer.
Yeah, it's definitely wiped out club level. You can't get anyone of any decent name for a club now without, you're talking 6, 7, 8 grand and upwards.
Of course. Judge Jules was my first, what I'll call superstar DJ at Habit. I'm not going to say his fee because he's still active now, but it was accessible. It was I'd call it premium, but it was good value for money. It was accessible, and there's a story to go with Judge Jules. So Judge Jules was at Habit first birthday. Habit was I played under Daniel John at Habit for 10 years. Because I didn't want the naughty people come to the bassline nights.
You changed your name to Daniel John.
Yeah, we had to do it back then. It was a thing where you had to, you didn't want the bassline people knowing, so you chucked them off the scent. And we were at Space, and me and Alex again, so the same people who was the bassline promoters on the Friday were the house promoters on the Thursday. And it worked well because Alex got into that house thing and really grew Habit, and I kept on with the bassline. And then he says, right, I've got Judge Jules. So he goes to me, he's got a rider. So I said, what's a rider? Like, I've not seen what a rider is. And he sends me this email through, and it said he wants a toaster. He wants a stool of adequate height. He wanted a black towel, a white towel. He wanted these certain Haribo sweets. It had to be Kerrygold butter. There were just this list, and I remember going round Asda with my mum saying, "I'm shopping for Judge Jules here," but I don't. It seems a bit extensive, all this stuff he wants. So I'm buying all this stuff, buy it all. Got the towels and everything, like big towels, small towels, all this. So go home, and I'm like, I've got toaster. So I said, I'll just take my own toaster, and I fill the car up. And I'm driving down the road, and I just still remember it to this day, my toaster is at the left-hand side of me. I brake, and I'm braking just near where the new Victoria Gate is now on them traffic lights. I brake, and then all the crumbs come out of the toaster, and you know what I'm like. I'm swearing and carrying on. I say, I've had enough of this. And I phone Alex up saying, "This is what I'm sick of it. I'm going to tell him." And he's absolutely he's wheezing, crying, laughing and thing. And they're all a wind up. So he didn't want his actual rider was a bottle of vodka. That's all he wanted. So we're there that night, and I had everything there. It were all in the DJ box. I had to get out of the car anyway. And he goes up to Judge Jules, as Alex, and he tells him all the story, thinking Judge Jules is just going to laugh his head off. He was fuming. He wasn't happy. Because he looked at it and he thought it was defamation of character. He thought, you're thinking that he would be like that. So, yeah, it were crazy.
That's fucking hilarious. That's cool.
Yeah. That one one of many wind-ups. But,
so it left a bad taste in your mouth with bookings.
It did. I were never fond. Obviously, we've been in various businesses throughout, and I were always, made it clear that I didn't like that this were this and this. I've always been a fan of good local talent, but I understand that's the way it is now. It's changed. Everything's moved on. It's evolved. I don't agree with DJs taking bookings for £20,000 and stuff like some headliners are now. I think it's just making it so hard now for the businesses to survive. Now we look at the present time we're in now of these, your festival promoters who are obviously going to get hit hard by this. And what happens then the year after this? The artist that was big in 2020. Are they going to be still big in 2021 when they haven't done a festival circuit? So there's all these things that I think about, and I just think it ruined it. I remember there's a certain DJ who was a £1,500 DJ, was an amazing DJ, went up to £30,000, and like it's crazy just what happened. And but yeah, we could talk about that for a while.
Yeah, no, it's definitely is killing clubs. It is a problem. So movement's done. You're on with Habit, and where next?
So at that point, when Habit was kind of reaching the end of its peak, so what happened is in 2008-9, we had a recession. So what happened in Clubland then was, so I was doing Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights events. All of a sudden, Thursday nights went poof, gone. The whole nation decided that we're skint. We aren't going out on Thursday night. So that kind of sorry, go on.
Is that what killed Habit? I can't genuinely remember what actually happened with Habit.
The recession. So back then there was, I don't know if you remember this, there was a night at Space called Funky Dory on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Funky Dory was capacity every week without fail. Habit at that point was capacity every week without fail. And when recession hit, both Funky Dory and Habit pretty much side by side just declined huge, because just people, in fact, I'd love to do it. I need to do a bit of digging on it to find out what happened back then in terms of how that recession worked and how people were influenced just to decide not to go out. And it just completely knocked off. And at that point then, the laws of that, I was just partying too much and just making a lot of sort of bad choices with, lifestyle and things like that. And getting to the point where Tuesday Blues had come on a Tuesday, you'd be writing some sadistic thing on Facebook, just trying to cause a stir. And it would, because you're falling out with people, fall out with yourself, fall out with everybody. But it was just basically because I was unhappy about what was happening. I was on this such a massive high of everything going right. So then I remembered, Habit going from sell out pretty much week in, week out to 250 people, and just not even breaking even and all that. And then Bassline then was going, because it was just classed as too, starting to be classed as a bit too rough. And I'm not a snob, but I remember playing a couple of gigs and thinking, why am I here? Like, I've just 2 years ago, I've just played to 3,000 people at Victoria Works, of all these intros, and I'm upstairs from a Chinese takeaway for £100. And it just, it's, I'll be very frowned upon about this, but it just felt very like a massive fall from grace. And at that point, I was so feeling sorry for myself. and that's where the end came about.
And was it literally that? Was you stood at a gig and just thought, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah, it was. It was just a moment of I don't know. I just felt like I didn't fit. I just felt like that wasn't me.
So you'd had all these like movement and Habit. You had the biggest bassline night, the biggest house night, playing all these huge gigs to hundreds, thousands of people, and then you stood at a gig. It's
not necessarily that the gig were.
It's going from there to there, isn't it? And
the scene at that point had died off that much that the crowd were just starting to. There were these little pockets of nights that were happening, and it would just the crowds were just starting to get a bit more rougher and edgier, and there were more fighting and stuff, and and also I grew up, so my friends who were with me from the start, who come to all my events, they started having kids. So the more I was going to these, I would stop knowing people. And they were like, so just that point where a mixture of bad gigs, you know, a lot of partying, a lot of self-loathing. You know, probably, you know, when we talk about mental health now, I was probably at that point, like, but you didn't think about your mental health back then. You just thought, I feel crap, I feel rubbish. And at that point, I was just probably on this massive spiraling come down of all these big things that I'd experienced. And it's something that, you know, people will go through it now. Like, no matter what, you know, like, you could be a football player, rugby player that could have played at a certain level. You know, it could be a DJ that's gone and done this, and you could have been a music artist that were playing at O2 and they're now, you know, having to do little things. It takes its toll on you. And then it was just a point where I just thought, with the O2, I just thought, right, why not try and go out with a bang and see if I can do it. You know, and just absolutely took a risk.
That took some gigantic balls, because how you must have been feeling as well, like mentally. Like, the last thing you'd want to do is put that on the line and do the O2. At the time, none of us had done O2. No one would sell out O2 on their own.
But at that point, I was also, you know, like, you know, off my head a lot of the time. So, like, I've had these ideas, and probably, you know, it probably ended up being a good one. And I went and just did it. And I remember phoning O2. I phoned Stu Darwin. And I says, get me in there. And he says, so what are you going to do? Just me.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it. It's fucking mental, because, like, you were down there and, like, most people would just bow out.
Yeah, it was years after the movement.
You decided to take the biggest event, the biggest venue in Leeds, on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, we're mad. Yeah, I don't know how to explain, you know, like, but at that point, I was writing lots of stuff online, and, you know, and it wasn't me, do you know, like, now I know it, like, it wasn't me. It was just, you know, it was just a result of how I was feeling at that time, and, you know, and it just feeling sorry for myself. And then I think I did it as a thing. So this could either go very wrong or very right. Like, if it goes wrong,
you got nothing.
And the, you know, the Leeds big, no, if it goes wrong, Leeds biggest venue, it looks dead. This is gonna be, you know, like, I'm gonna be laughed at. But it's kind of so anyway. Obviously, what everyone knows what happened. And then from there, that were it. Stop. Now, the story, what people have just got this thing that still goes on now, how many years it has been, that, like, I did it 5 times and I did this. It was literally, the story is that I was off my head too much. I was self-loathing. I was on this massive spiral of a come down that, you know, from all the heights of Victoria work, falling out with people all the time, just constantly just having arguments with people. I think Michelle and kids were the only people I didn't argue with. I think it was, like, I didn't really come home. But you could see she was looking, thinking, God, what's he writing on Facebook now? Oh God, he's gone. And then did that gig, and I remember the thing about that gig. What I remember really, really well is my dad come, and my dad has been. My dad was singer in a band for years, like lead singer, but loved it, absolutely loved it. Got his van, did everything. Are we live or?
Yeah, it's just said my internet connection is unstable, but it's still recording.
What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go from?
I got up to just carry on.
Right. So the thing about the thing about O2, what I really, really remember well is that my dad were in a band for years, like a pub band, singer of a band for pub year. Did it, absolutely loved it. You know, didn't make much money, but he'd pack his van up, get all his gear, go do his gig, come back. And he come to that gig at O2. And I remember, like, you know, and he doesn't show much emotion, my dad, at all. Like, he's stone cold as Dave, stone cold. And he were crying. And I didn't see he were crying, but, like, loads of my mates were sort of, like, round him. Like, and he was stood on that balcony looking down. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, like we went back to dressing room. And I remember that dressing room in there, like, wow, just what it was like.
Mm-hmm.
Got the people that had been in there. And he said to me, like, says, what are you doing? Like, why are you stopping? And I couldn't at that point start explaining to him, like, the stuff that had been happening and all that. And that were it. Like, so I left, did it. I got 10 months. I did 10 months of, and I was working on another project, like totally off of music. And I got 10 months. And then I just started thinking, bloody hell, this isn't like, what's going on here? I need to get back to music. I need to do it. And because I'd staged such a big kind of, ending gig,
Mm-hmm.
people thought then, still to this day, thought that it was some sort of like business ploy and that I were always going to come back. It won't, because in terms of business, if you think, even though I might not have been doing the best gigs, I could have still been gigging 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. And if I'd have wanted to, could have gone, doesn't matter where I'd gone. So the money made in missing a year's worth of gigs compared to just doing one gig doesn't pay for a year's worth of gigs. Doesn't matter what, it didn't. So there was this like thing around it that I'd done it on purpose to then go and come back and it wasn't just want that. And then that were it. And then what I were doing is I'd come back, but because I won't come back full time and I just do a bit when I wanted to do a bit. And that's where all these little sayings are, the end, part 3, part 4, part 5, it won. There were never anything called the end. And then what happened then is,
but did that play on your mind? Did you want to do more, but you did that stop you from doing more because people were giving you them digs and
do you know what?
Saying them things?
They still say it now though. But they still say it now on the comments and my things. They still say,
I know, but now you can deal with it. I mean, like when you was deciding to come back, and then you did.
I think I took it a lot better when I came afterwards, purely because I wasn't the person I was when I quit, if that makes sense. I want outing nightclubs every weekend. I want, I want doing things. I want drinking all the time.
You were less concerned with what people were writing on Facebook.
I were kind of gone from it. I wasn't in it anymore, so it didn't really bother me. And don't get me wrong, it's still, when I read it now, it does nag me a bit. And but then on the flip side, because I've done things and I like to think I've done well enough with what I've done, people just look at it and, they talk about it. So if they're still talking about it, they're still talking about it. We're never intentional in terms of that's how it were. Because I can make more money being regular than I can on just coming back. Like you know your maths. You have to do a massive capacity venue and sell it at a very high ticket price to justify 1 year's worth gigs. It just didn't happen. And then what you got to remember is, and I didn't just give up gigs like DJing. I give up promoting and all those kind of other bits that I was sort of involved. Still had shares in what was Habit then. But I wasn't doing anything active. And then I think I did 2 or 3 years of just doing little bits and bobs. And then I just kind of didn't do like an ending gig. I just sort of said one day, right, that's it now. I'm just going to have a break. And then,
I think you played a New Year's Eve. And I remember we spoke to each other a couple of days after and you said, like, that's me done now. I'm not announcing it. I'm not telling anyone.
Michelle didn't know. No, I did.
It was Mission, wasn't it? Because I remember saying, we should have told me. I could have billed it as your last event.
Oh, yeah. We'd gone to I always were going to Tenerife on New Year's Day. I always used to go away then. And I'd had a few drinks. And I said, right, that's it now. Just cheers. Just going to have that's it now for a bit. And Michelle's like, what have you done? She didn't even know. Just thought, I'm one of those kind of people that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, no matter what. Like I'll do it. So like I've just got that time. Like you can't stop me if I've got something in my head. At that point, you know, I'm very hard to win round. So and then I did the charity event about a year later, and after that charity event, I had another year off, and then ever since then I've just kind of just done a bit more. Still don't not a regular person to a club. I do my own thing still, you know, like my events at Mint, and I enjoy it. Yeah, it's something that I had to discover that. Like I had to discover what it felt like for it to be taken away properly, to actually discover whether I liked it or not. And I'll still say, to be honest, it's only been this kind of last, where are we at now? Probably 18 months that I've really, really liked it. And I mean, like some of the I think when I started making music again, so I did the Hearts Ain't Gonna Lie remix last year, and I remember just playing that track at Mint, and I'd gone back with a producer I did my first track with in 2002, Funk Agenda, Adam.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
I did, yeah. And I got that sound back that was my sound in 2002, and I thought, wow, yeah, that's and I wasn't just playing the old bassline stuff. I was playing a brand new production, which was still like the sound that I used to play. So it's ever since then, and then obviously with all the live stream things that are going on now, I love it. You know, like playing vinyl for 4 hours the other day, like to, you know, from DJ to DJ, like to go pull out some decks, not rehearse. No, sorry, not say rehearse, but not like have a good practice run. No, and then just to go live in front of everyone when you know loads of DJs are watching as well, and just go bang and 4 hours and play. And I think might have a couple of little mixes, but everything else seemed all right. It were pressure, but it's all gone full circle, and I'm collecting records again, and kind of everything's gone round in this spin, and I like it again. Really like it.
You definitely seem like you're enjoying it, and you're doing stuff at your own pace. You're not forcing things, and it's probably taken that break to do that. You've kind of got rid of all the pressure. You're not doing stuff to stay relevant or to boost your profile. You're doing stuff now because you want to do it and you enjoy it again.
Yeah, and I guess it's been kind of my own boss. Like, you know, the thing with promoters is a good promoter is a strong person, but you put strong people all together in a collective, then there's going to be clashes, because they're all these people have been put together in their own right because they have earned their merit to be here. So they've all had to make tough decisions down the road to be that person. So that's what I didn't like about it. So like the reason why as well, if I didn't enjoy promoting, was I didn't enjoy falling out with people like constantly, you know, like, you know, we'd have fallouts. Me and Alex would fall out. Me and Jamie would have fallouts at times. And me and James would have little faults, and just all this kind of, and I take it so personal. Yeah, like, you know, like you weren't really bothered, you know, you go at it hard and then you'd just be all right next day. Whereas I, like, to me, I'd go home and I'd be like raging about it, and Paul Michelle would have to listen to it all. And that's the kind of thing that what you say now is like going at my own pace. I'm happy because I'm kind of just doing what just doing me. And I think that's a really important thing to anybody getting into the music industry. You have to do you. You've got to do. You can't just copy what somebody else is doing and alleviate away from what you're doing, and not because that means what you were doing wasn't good enough in the first place. Just concentrate on being you. So.
Yeah, and with the full circle thing, it does come back round. So if you do just do you, stay in your lane, it will eventually come back round. You see a lot of promoters try to adapt and follow what other people are doing, and it goes tits up for them.
It does. You know, we'll cut to 2020 and April 2020. Use Dale Castell as an example of the live streaming emergence, what's taken place. Dale Castell, people who don't know him, Dale Castell every Friday, every Saturday plays funky house in his son's bedroom with like transformers and stuff. But you know, when you listen to Dale, what you're going to get. You know exactly the music you're going to get. He plays perfect timing. And the main reason why he's done so well with it is he's just been him.
Mm-hmm.
And he isn't trying to be anything else. He's just him. Those dance moves, you're going to see him like in the real life. That's how he is. That smile you're going to see in real life. Those tunes that he plays, that's tunes he's going to play when you see him. So just being himself, and that's the key. And I talk to DJs, like people ask, why is, and you know, like they'll what we're bothered about saying is people say, why is he doing so well? Like, you know, like in terms of, because he wasn't a huge name, you know, we're a good local name, but it wasn't a huge name. But because he did him and he had the platform to be him, then it's just the story of this sort of emergence of what he's done. And that's a prime example of, you don't have to, you know, like your chance will come. However it'll come, if you're good enough and you're consistent and you just carry on being you, your chance will come. Don't try. And it's happened in Leeds over the years. I've seen it myself where people have just like tried to look on to the next cool thing and then tried to go down that road. And it don't work because people see, don't feel natural. Like I couldn't go do an R&B night because I'm not an R&B promoter. I never even try, but it's just, you know, so.
It is sad to see sometimes when people are just desperate to go with that new trend, and it's just completely, you know, in the wrong direction for them. Defected are a good example of that. You know, Defected have just stayed in their own lane, and eventually it's come back round, and you know, they're probably the biggest label in the world now.
100%, and it's
they've not tried to do anything. You know, they've not jumped on the tech market when that was blowing up, or techno and stuff. It is just, you know, you can listen to a Defected record from 20 years ago and pick up a Defected record today, and it is still that sound. They've just stayed in their lane, and eventually it comes back round.
Yeah, you know, it's such a great example, and it's been so good to I watched their streams, and that's a huge worldwide brand, and to see what they've done just from being consistent has paid off in dividends now. Like, you know, it's like the patience that they'll have had to go through when vinyl was dying out and people having to think about buying an MP3 file and all this, and they've just stuck with it and stuck with it and stuck with it. And I think, you know, DJs like Sam Divine brought it. I think Sam Divine were a big moment in Defected, though. I think when Sam Divine released Flowers, I just feel like even though it wasn't a Defected track, by the way, she were there. I don't think Defected signed that, no. I think it was another label. But that was a big moment of when it started. People, even though they still played cool house music, it started to be a thing again, and it wasn't just, you know, like you think about brands that have come and gone. Where's Head Candy?
Yeah,
It had, you know, had all the hallmarks of being huge, but it was trendy. But it's not here.
Yeah. And what happens then? Perfect example is yourself. When you stay in your lane, and when it comes back around, like now for you, you've got all them original fans. You've got all them people who know what Danny Bond is from then. But then you've got the whole new era of people that latch onto it. So, you know, you've now got 18-year-olds coming to Danny Bond events as well as 30-plus-year-olds.
Well, the thing
again, you know, you've got my mum as well as a 16-year-old who'll go to a Defected festival now.
Yeah, it's the thing about age in events is I've just again, I've had to cover this because it's weird because my gigs are predominantly 18 to 22-year-old, like people who I won't even say back of the bus because we've gone way past back of the bus Sony Ericsson days now. We've gone way past that. iPhones have been around a long time. But this audience, and it's, young people. I've had to now do an over 30s event at Mint because the over 30s don't like to mix with the young people because a lot of them might have kids. They might be their kid. So like this splitting crowd, and it's great to play. Like I know now, like I can see, it tells me in my my streaming stuff. Like I know that if I play certain sets, that the average age listener was 22, was like 22, 23. But then when I play that, it's for 35. And the music that an 18-year-old bassline fan likes compared to what a 35-year-old likes, two totally different things.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beauty of bassline. Beauty of bassline was that it was just such a mixture of genres, all like melting pot put together, but it worked. It just did. And I don't think there's any other sort of scene like that across the world that I've heard of yet that amalgamates all these genres together. Like some of the hard house to piano house to like a really slow funky house.
And that translates into the customers as well. You've got a whole range of customers from working class people right through to everyone. It hits everyone.
Yeah, it does. It's a great thing to be a part of. It's the madness of what that kind called a cross genre. It was like it was like a crossbreed dog of the music scene. It was everything put together. That's just what it was. But it was it's a brilliant thing.
Brilliant. Well, that's been ace.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to? What is next for Danny Bond?
So the next things for me are streaming's going to be a big thing for a long time. So there's going to be an emergence of that, which will be talked about in the next few weeks of where that's going to go. Primarily because of Facebook and copyright issues and things like that. There's gigs in the pipeline. There's still a part of me that has a big gig in them. I'm not going to say left in them. There's a big gig in them. But at the moment, I'm just taking it week by week. I'm not getting overexcited by Facebook Live viewer videos and stuff like that. I'm just kind of just enjoying it. Last Saturday, aside from the end of the set last Saturday, was
Were it a setup?
No. So the story goes. So I shouldn't do it, but I do. I sound like an alcoholic, by the way, on here, because I talk about drinking all the time. But I do when I'm DJing. I like to have a little drink. She loosens you up. So 4 hours in, I'd had a fair few. And it was 3 hours 50 into stream because everyone's watched it. And I'm playing. And I just see the door open and I look and I see Alan there. With no top on, which I've never seen that before. I've known Alan 11 years, by the way. I've lived next door to him for 11 years. And he starts doing this dance, and I'm thinking, I must be enjoying it. And I just thought, right, I'll just carry on with what I'm doing. And I was just thinking about, so I was drunk, and I was thinking, I've got to mix Whitney Houston, It's Not Right, but It's Okay in here. And like, if any DJs know, that is an absolute bugger to mix that record because it's all choppy in that. So I thought, just getting this ready. And then all of a sudden he walks in and he does what he does with the arm. And then I was just the shock, what's going on here? What's happening? And then obviously, he steps back and forward, and then I closed the door. But some of the theories that have gone around, like one said that I were in my bedroom and that they were mirrored doors, which you don't have locks on you don't have locks on that. I have people saying I set it up as a PR stunt, like the logistics involved in asking my neighbour to, go on social media, go commit something like that, break like these social distancing laws. But do you know what? We spoke the day after, and he were gutted about it. He'd had a few drinks, and is in his words, his windows were shaking. And then I know I should laugh now, but I do have it loud to bit deaf. And it were 11:30, which I don't normally do. And that was that, but it were it were that's that. Do you know that the thing about live streaming is that's the thing. It's very like some of the best streams. It is raw. It's uncut. It's unedited. It's live. It's things can happen. That's just That's what the crowd do like watching these streams, because they do like to see what's going on. They like it that they can see my cat floating about in house and stuff. That's it's just, and I think it'll keep getting. Live streams keep getting bigger and bigger because it's a big part of his culture now. It's something that we can connect with the people that we probably don't go to nightclubs anymore, the older generation.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how it carries on after lockdown's finished.
Yeah, good. Be good.
So just to sum up the podcast, what is your single biggest piece of advice for any young people listening who want to get into the nightlife and music industry?
Okay, so there's no shortcut to success. You've just got to prepare. You've got to prepare to be let down constantly. You've got to prepare to feel low. But as long as you enjoy it, then you'll keep going. If you fall at the first hurdle, probably means you didn't enjoy it in the first place. So you've just got to be mentally tough. You've got to mentally grit it out. Like as a DJ, now doing live streams, if you're doing a live stream to 10 people, I'd love to play it to, like when I was young, playing to 10 people inside a bedroom was amazing. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. If you're cautious about doing a live stream as well, why not do it in a private group where just you and your friends are? Ask your friends to watch it, and you won't feel bad then if there's not that many people there, because you only wanted them there in the first place. So just DJs now that are coming up in this sort of era, just be you, but also prepare. It's going to be hard. It's not going to happen overnight. Go back to the start of the story. I had everything stolen. I had nothing. I worked in a taxi rank. I've done all the unglamorous things, and you've got to do those things. It's just the same as anything. People look at boxers. You look at a world champion. You look at, local lad Josh Warrington, and you see him as a world champion, but you forget that for years and years and years, he drove around in his van selling tickets. He trains in spit and sawdust gyms. He does modest things. All people see is what's up there. All people see is the end result. But you've just got to put the work in and prepare for the setbacks, but just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, Dan. Thank you very much. That was an absolute pleasure. Welcome to the Party Starters podcast with me, Kane Towning.
I know you're gonna dig this.